Hello, Mark W. here, and welcome to my computer desk. Today I have a bunch of 5 1/4 inch floppy disks that are probably all from the decade of the 80s. Maybe a few are from the early 90s. In my household growing up, we had Atari and Commodore computers all the way through that time period when PC clones started to become popular, and and MS-DOS was popular, Microsoft Windows and all that. But yeah, before that sort of era, in my household, the popular guys were the Commodore and Atari. So I think all these discs are for those two computers. Um, these come from my parents' house. My dad has been offloading a bunch of old computers as well as video game consoles and games and even some board games to me to clear up some clutter. And he knows I'll have fun playing with these things or at least looking through them. And I brought them here to my to my computer desk with the intention of kind of wiping down some of this old grimy stuff, maybe dusting off some things. But I thought it would be fun to record my actual flipping through of these discs, and maybe I'll have some, fun reactions, or at least get to tell you guys about some fun old games I used to play, or have some memories about these things. So again, I suspect these are all for Commodore and Atari. There should be no DOS or any other systems here. We didn't have any Apple computers growing up, so no Apple II. We didn't have whatever else was popular, semi-popular at the time. We had no TRS 80 or Texas Instruments or any of that stuff. Just Commodore and Atari. All right, let's begin without further ado. So I thought I would put this kind of tub of discs aside and look at the loose discs first. So I already see at the top what we have, and that is Age of Adventure by Stuart Smith. Now, this I believe was made using the Adventure Construction Set engine. So Stuart Smith made that as well. There was a cool game, more like a construction kit, hence the name, called Adventure Construction Set, and you can make your own sort of RPG adventure games. It was really good, and I spent a lot of time with it. As far as game mechanics, you didn't have enough, like a whole lot of leeway, but you could make your own world, like an overworld, and all the different locations you would go into and stuff. And so yeah, these are two specific games made using that engine, if I recall correctly. Alibaba and the 40 Thieves on the front side, and on the back side, The Return of Heracles. I remember these ones. These two particular adventures were really well done. But let's keep moving. This one is called 2-on-1. Yeah, this is from Mastertronic, who were known for having budget games for Commodore and perhaps other systems too, but I remember only getting their games for Commodore. I actually recall getting this for my birthday. I believe my older sister Marie got me this. And this is two games in one: One Man and His Droid and Non Terraqueous. Probably not the best games for Commodore. One Man and His Droid is really freaking hard. You're like a robot shepherd trying to, um, you know, uh, herd these kind of alien sheep into these special corridors. But One Man and His Droid is known for having a really cool soundtrack by the famous chips. What do you call it? The SID chipset musician or composer. His name was, or his name is, he's still around, Rob Hubbard. I hope I have his name right. I'm trying to think, is it Ron Hubbard, Rob Hubbard? And then I start mixing up names in my mind, like L. Ron Hubbard. I think it's Rob Hubbard. Let me look that up real quick because I don't want to screw this up. I already did screw it up, but let me just make sure I got it right. Rob Hubbard is a musician, yeah. So he is known for making a lot of great tunes for, I think, only Commodore, maybe other machines as well. And One Man and His Droid is highly respected musically. The game is it's good but very hard. Non Terraqueous. Oh wow, I'm trying to remember that. I remember that had a cool soundtrack too. Now that I think of it, it wasn't a fantastic game. It was fun though, just not like an all-time classic. Next up, now you can see right off the bat that some of these discs are commercially purchased. Some are, BASF, Maxill, and we'll have to read the labels of each. So here we have, okay, nothing on the back, but this is a Maxill disc, and it looks like it used to have something for the game Mobius on it, perhaps a save state for a character, but it looks like that was crossed out and replaced with this looks like my handwriting. Ultima 4 Monster Slayer. I think I had a character Well, it probably wasn't my best character because his name was Grim Reaper, but I must have made a second character and called him Monster Slayer. And so that this disc would contain the saves game for that Ultima 4 character, presumably. Here we have side one. By the way, this is cool. This is a Elephant Memory Systems. I remember these discs. The idea was Elephant never forgets, and then this disc media would be perfect. Apparently, you would never forget your data. Just don't hold a magnet to it, as they say right here. They give you lots of. That's actually good that they do that because I think a lot of kids, like the kids I knew, and we had like 7-year-olds just recklessly tossing discs around and treating them like garbage. Handle them like glass is true. I'm not really doing that here. I'm being a little less delicate than that. But anyway, we have on side one Pascal, the programming language, and on side two Raid on Bungling Bay. Yeah, Raid on Bungling Bay. I never really played that. I think I just remember my brother playing it. And I think you're just like this helicopter flying around shooting enemies, basically. Next up. Wow, Racing Destruction set, both sides. Okay, and I know we bought this game, so I don't know why we would have a copy of it, unless it is actually just saved data, like the cars you make and the tracks I think you could save. So in Racing Destruction set, it was basically a race car game, but you could create your own configurations of cars. You could outfit them with different things, and as the game, as the game title suggests, there's violence in it too. I always thought it was fun to construct things in this game more than to play it. The gameplay was kind of slow, and the cars were kind of like, and you would often like hit a ramp. Like it was fun that it had ramps, but you would not have enough momentum, so your car would go like this and roll back down. And you tried to back up enough to gather enough speed and go up the ramp, but you didn't quite make it again. And I just remember it kind of being not too exciting when it would get into that kind of situation. This is a Nashua disc. Excuse me. And on side one, we have Moon Goddess, Darkest Africa, Walking Dead. That's kind of funny. We have a game called Walking Dead long before the comic book and TV show. And Speed Racer, side two, blank. Now, I feel like I tend to have good memory about a lot of old games that I used to have and play, even if they were obscure. I can't say I have any recollection of any of these titles. So if I ever get whatever, I don't know what machine this is for, Commodore or Atari, if I ever get one of those machines in person again, I'd be happy to explore this disc, maybe even on a live stream. But for now, I have no idea what it is. Next up is the all-time classic from Electronic Arts, Archon. Yeah. Great game, Archon. And I played that on this channel before. Okay, another elephant disc, as you can see. And this is a game called Alcazar that I remember being pretty cool. That was by, who made that one? I feel like it was a pretty big publisher. Let me Google that real quick. Alcazar was a game, oh, I'm finding other stuff. Board game, There we go, it's called Alcazar, The Forgotten Fortress. It was also on ColecoVision. But who made this? Activision, that's right. I knew it was like kind of a big name. Okay. Look, but notice it says side two blank, but that was crossed out. What is on side two? Oh. Spy Hunter. Dun, 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 dun. Moving on, Party Quiz. Yeah, I remember this game. This is a special game where you would plug in these proprietary, very special controllers, very specialized. They didn't do anything else but play this game. They were essentially these pads about like maybe about like this big, except cut off this part, and you would hold them in your hand, maybe like down to here actually, like rectangular pads, and they had 4 large buttons, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it was a trivia game with multiple choice, and you would guess 1, 2, 3, or 4 with that special controller. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, the trivia questions can get dated, but I actually remember playing this with some family and friends in probably the early 2000s, and we were kind of laughing about how dated everything was back then, and now it's like 20 years later again. It was fun though. Cool concept. Next up, Side A, Joust. Side B, Zork 3, Lady Tut, and Forbidden Forest. And look at this. This is an electronics boutique floppy disk, apparently. They used to exist. That's a store that did pretty well, actually. Even after the 80s, if I recall correctly. It was typically called Elbow, and they would be found in many shopping malls. But originally, Electronics Boutique was kind of the back end of a bookstore. I'm trying to think of the name. Maybe it was B. Dalton. So you would go into B. Dalton, and it's a bookstore in the front, and then in the back, it would be Electronics Boutique. Hopefully, I have that name right. Here we have On-Court Tennis on the front, Mr. Dew's Wild Ride, and Trolls and Tribulations. That is an underrated gem, in my opinion. A lot of fun. It has really cool music. It incorporates a lot of classical music and other, like, traditional music, and it does it really well. And it's a fun little platformer. Bard's Tale 2 is on the back. Wow. No, Bard's Tale, I guess it's a 2. I'm pretty sure we bought that game. So I think this is a saved game for it on the back, probably. Some character. I don't know what EO is here, but somebody had fun trying to make it look 3D. And what we have here is on side 1, Gauntlet, which needs no introduction, and Hardball. Hardball was a very popular baseball game by, I believe, Accolade. And you can see that game in the very famous movie, The Princess Bride. In the beginning, Fred Savage's character is playing Hardball on his computer when his grandfather walks in to check on how he's doing. Oh, wow, there's the Hulk. I remember this. Look, it's by Green Valley Publishing. This is an adventure game, like a graphical adventure game where you like just type in commands you want to do. This is from 1985. I remember this being like impossibly hard and nonsensical. Like you get excited thinking you're going to play, a game as the Hulk where you get to smash things. And it's like, one of those games where it's like, it's never clear. One of the adventure games where it's like, it's never clear what you have to do. You have to just type in the right words or go in the right direction in the right, go in the right locations in the right order. And it's very hard to figure out unless you really persist. If I recall correctly. All these things are if I recall correctly. We already had Zork 3, but we have yet another one apparently. And the back it says, what is that? It looks like I used a certain marker. This looks like my handwriting that did not hold up, but it says Maze of Magicor. Could that be what it says? Maze of Magicor? I don't really know what that is. Huh. Next up, this one I remember being an Atari 8-bit disc somehow. We have a game called Closeout on the front, as well as Gauntlet, Dr. Download. That rings a bell, but I don't remember what it is. Maybe it's like a modem communications program. Also, K-Print, and this is the backside. K-Print, Menu M, AMS Songs, AMS. Don't know what that is. And what does this say? A mode? Now, this Gauntlet is not the Gauntlet that most people know, I don't think. There's a really cool game made before the Gauntlet that most people know and love by a guy named, what's his name? Don something. And it's a cool spaceship game where you just float around in space and there's like a lot of terrain that you have to avoid or you can even blow your way through with your shots. There's different guns you can use, like, explosive kinds or just a bolt that just shoots like kind of a lightning bolt kind of a thing. And each different enemy has some good AI. It's not like a Space Invaders kind of game where you're just plowing through tons of enemies. Usually at one screen has maybe like somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 8 enemies, and they each have their own interesting AI, and you have to deal with them all accordingly. Closeout, I remember the name. I can't place what the heck that's about though. Closeout. Here we have a Firebird disc. And we have Underworld on one side. And I can tell you right now what game is on the other side because I totally remember this game. This is for Commodore 64, by the way. One clue is, I remember in the first place, but one clue is if you ever see load, quotes, star quotes, comma 8, comma 1, that is the classic command you would enter to load whatever is in the disk drive, basically, on your Commodore. I don't remember the exact meaning of each parameter. I think the last one is like the mode, like binary mode or not. And 8, I think, refers to the device. I think 8 is the first disk and 9 might be the second in case you have 2 disk drives, but don't quote me on any of this. On the back, we have exactly what I remembered, Saber Wolf. They're both very cool games, actually. Next up, we have one of my all-time favorites, at least side C and D of it, Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar by Lord British, by Origin Systems, 1985. This was a considered a groundbreaking role-playing game. I think very briefly the story was Lord British, who's a real person. His name is Richard Garriott. He found in his earlier Ultima games, in other words, Ultimas 1 to 3, people were doing unsavory things like killing townsfolk and killing the guards and taking all their money and things like that. So he said, and I think this was with the backdrop of people thinking like D&D and such were inherently evil. So he said, well, why don't we just make a system that encourages people to actually be the good guy, right? Rather than just rewarding them from killing people. In this game, Ultima 4, you are trying to become the avatar who is the ultimate pinnacle of goodness, sort of. So there's 8 virtues that you're trying to uphold, like honesty and justice, sacrifice, valor, and your actions in the game affect your rating. It's kind of an internally tracked rating for each of those virtues, and you're trying to basically become, maxed out in each of those. So if you ever do something wrong, you could actually lose some points in the respective virtue. For example, what was it? I think for honesty, there was a blind shopkeeper. It's a little bit silly. You'd think they would have a system for this if it was a real world thing, but it's a game. So basically, there's a blind shopkeeper. You buy something. She says that'll cost 20 gold, and you say you're prompted. How much gold do you want to pay? So you could put 1 gold in her hand, and you would get away with it, but you would lose, I believe, some of your virtue, your honesty points. And another thing would be like the virtue valor. If you run away from a fight, you would lose valor. So you had to kind of become the avatar, the ultimate in all 8 virtues. Next up, we have auto duel. Auto duel. So that's based on the Steve Jackson games, auto duel, I suppose, which I guess was based on Car Wars, also by Steve Jackson games. But for some reason, I don't remember this actually being played. It could be it didn't float my boat. It might have been something my brother preferred, or maybe it just didn't work. And you can see Seamus is crossed out, which is a cool game, where you're just a dude running around through levels shooting monsters in 8 directions, I believe. F-15 Strike Eagle. Kind of a flight/combat sim, I think, that I never really got into when you're in an F-15, obviously. What is this? Well, what we have is a demo disc where it looks like the front side is Commodore and the back side is Apple, and it is by CBS Software, Success with Math, Success with Algebra. And it looks like, okay, I'm trying to process what I'm seeing. It looks like somebody decided, I think this is my handwriting, that we didn't care about side 2 because it was for Apple. So we saved something else on the back called Isle of Fear, whatever that might be. I have no idea what that is offhand. It could be a standalone game. Maybe it's an adventure that I or somebody made in adventure construction sets. Kid Pro Quo. Don't remember what that is at all, but I feel like it wasn't a game. It was some kind of utility or other application. And on the back, we have Street Sports Baseball, which I think was a lot of fun, if I recall correctly. It was kind of like a bunch of kids playing baseball in the street. And I think you could draft a team, and it would give you like different abilities, pros and cons of each player and such. Treasure Island, inside be blank. Not ringing a bell. It might be a text adventure game. Treasure Island, perhaps. Don't remember. Look at this one. Another elephant. By the way, there's a lot of stains on these things. I don't know what was going on. Were we spilling drinks and stuff? Quite possibly. We have some crossed off mule and such. but it looks like it's Cars and Tracks. Hmm. I wonder if that means for the game I mentioned a minute ago, Racing Destruction Set. Could it be the saved Cars and Tracks for that? You would think we would have written the game on it. In the back, we have Main Street Word Processor, which I guess was a word processor, which I don't remember using much, by the way. We did use, this is for Commodore probably, by the way. Yeah, I'm not mentioning the systems I suspect for each of these discs, but I would think that of all of them I've gone through so far, they're all Commodore, I think, with the exception of that one I mentioned that I was like really sure was Atari. But then again, I could be remembering wrong. So yeah, we did use a word processor on Atari growing up a lot. It was called Atari Writer. So I don't think this one was used much in my household at all. But Atari Writer was. Next up, we have a Memorex disc. And it says Side 1, Dragon's Lair. Yeah, you know that game, but this is not the Laserdisc game. Obviously, you can't play a Laserdisc game on your Commodore or Atari. It was a kind of a not very good game, but hey, they get an A for effort. I just mostly remember the first screen when you're on this green round platform that's dropping, and there's like a sort of wind elemental or something blowing you and it's trying to knock you off the opposite side. So you have to run towards that creature that's blowing at you, and then you have to jump off at the right moment to survive it. I don't remember anything else after that really. Probably because I spent hours on that one level. I think I did beat it, that level, not the whole game. Wow. So we have on the backside Coki's eggs. You might remember what the heck is. You might be wondering what the heck is Coki's eggs. Yeah. So going back to Adventure Construction Set, which I played with a ton. You can make your own adventures. I'm trying to remember all the details. I guess we don't need all the details, just the broad strokes. But Koki was an imaginary monster that my younger sister Jen had, or that she feared. And he was a green guy with red eyes, I think. I don't remember anything else about him. But I made an adventure construction set adventure called The Revenge of Koki, when you just had to fight Koki, the bad guy, essentially. And then I made a second one called Koki's Eggs, in which there were these eggs, these green eggs, scattered about the world. And if I recall correctly, they would hatch and grow into like a baby Koki, and eventually the full-fledged Koki. And you had to get rid of them all, I guess. So that'd be fun to load up sometime. It will actually work. We'll see if Koki is still intact. All right, what do we have here? Nom saves. Huh, do we have a game called Nom? I can't remember a game called Nom. Obviously, it's totally possible that we had some games set in Vietnam. I just don't remember any. And side B is Frizzy. No clue what that is. Movie Maker. I actually have a video of playing a certain Movie Maker video on this channel. Here's another one. Yep, there's a Movie Maker. You make movies with it. They're very primitive animation. I remember it being very difficult to work with. You know, imagine trying to make a movie on a Commodore 64 with a joystick as your main controller. You know, we're not talking a mouse with a pointer that you could drag, you know, click and drag and all that stuff. And obviously it was very limited, but it was fun to play with the demos, if I remember, just kind of play the videos that came with it. And I guess if you were inclined and good enough, you could make your own movies. I just never put in the time and the effort, I don't think. Next up, Mr. Robot saves. Okay. Yar Kung Fu leaderboard, which I think is a golf game. Oh, look at this. Side 2 is these. I think these are names of Movie Maker animations that probably came with the game, such as Xmas, which is the deranged Christmas movie that I have on my channel. And there's a happy birthday one, something with a dog. Can't read that one. But Mr. Robot is a cool platformer game, and you can make your own levels. So this has the saves for that. Yeah, Kung Fu was a pretty good game. Also, kind of a one-on-one fighter before, way before games like Street Fighter 2 existed, for sure. Pretty good game. What is this? The Code Writer series. Full line demo with adventure game. Huh. What was this? I don't remember at all. All I can think of is this is for Atari, by the way. It says it right over here. All I can guess is maybe it was a tool to make adventure games, but I don't know. Maybe I'll look it up later. And you know what I should do? Anything I don't know what it is, I will research it later and leave in the comments what my findings are. For example, what else was there? That Nom game or something. Actually, that's probably not enough to go by that one name. Here we have Rock and Rhythm by Spinnaker Software for the Commodore 64. I vaguely remember this. I think you could make, I guess it was like GarageBand for Mac, if you guys know that one. I just vaguely remember it. I remember there was like a graphic, maybe like a silhouette of a drummer, and you could define the beat, and he plays the beat for you. And I guess you could probably have other tracks as well, you know, guitar and whatnot, probably bass and vocals. Though you wouldn't actually hear vocals; it would just probably be a melody. Arcade machine games, and here's Treasure Island again coming up. Arcade machine, we had that for Atari. It's a game making tool. It's kind of limited to shoot 'em ups. I remember being extremely excited by the prospect of having a game making tool at the time, and my brother bought it from the store. And it was pretty fun, but it was very limited in the style of games you can make. I don't know what Treasure Island is again, though. Here we have Ultima 4 again. I don't need to go at length about that, but this is side A and B. The other disc had C and D. A is the main program disc, so I think you would always boot up with that one in. And then side B is for the town, so whenever you go to a town, it would tell you to put in side B, I think. Sargon 3 is a chess game. I was never into these, personally. But they're well-known classics, though. Like, if you think before the era of Chess Master, which was huge, I think Sargon was probably the biggest series of chess games. Next up, Castle Wolfenstein, 1982 for Atari. Yeah, a lot of this is Muse software, obviously. Award-winning software since '78. A lot of people think that Wolfenstein 3D by id Software was the first Wolfenstein game, but this is it. Castle Wolfenstein 1982. And id was actually inspired by this game when they made Wolfenstein 3D. They might have like bought the rights or something. I remember reading the story a while ago, but I can't recall the details. But it is definitely inspired by this. This is a fun game that I tried to play recently, and I like to give old games a fair shake for sure. But I found the controls extremely frustrating, especially since you needed to use the joystick and the button on the joystick and the keyboard all at once. And it was very easy to like just, if you walk into a wall, your guy gets stunned for like 3 or 4 seconds, and it's extremely frustrating to me. But I remember absolutely loving it at the time, though. And yeah, that's that on the back. What is this on the back? Death World, Charmer, Racer, Light, Trapped, Space Rescue, Defense, Rebound, Baseball, and Cavern King. Huh. Don't remember any of those. They might have been, if they all fit on one side of a disc, they might have been like kind of micro games. But I don't recall what they are. I would guess they're also Atari games. If the front is Atari, it would probably be smart to make to put only Atari stuff on the back. But who knows? We weren't always smart as kids. Knights and Wizards. This is a wow. This is a game. It was a commercially produced game, but you can see by the label, this wasn't exactly like Muse software with like where they hired obviously somebody, some artist to design the logo, and it's a very professional looking thing. This is by KTEL software, and you can see it looks like just somebody made a very basic printed out label. So this game, though, I have a vague memory of it. I'm gonna have to try it sometime. It's very simple game where there's a knight and a wizard, just one of each. I don't know why it's pluralized. I think one of them is red and one of them is blue. And I think you just fight it out on single screen, and that's basically it. It's 2-player. Yeah, it's for Atari, not Commodore. another Nashua disc. Zeppelin Rescue, which I don't remember. Potty Pigeon, which I do remember, because that's a game where you're a potty and you are relieving yourself on cars and other enemies while trying to build a nest from twigs that you find around the level, which is basically, an outdoorsy level. There's trees, there's a road that the cars drive along, and you get points for pooping on the cars. Mr. Wimpy, I don't remember, but I feel like it was a knockoff of some game. Maybe Mr. Do. I don't know. Park Patrol, I vaguely remember. This is all Commodore, by the way. Yeah, I remember that game looking pretty cool, but not playing it a lot. So it didn't grab me, I guess. Crystal Castles is famous. Dragonfire, is that the same Dragonfire as the one by iMagic for Intellivision and Atari? Don't remember at all. Side B is Ultra Byte 3.0 parameters. No idea what that is. And here we have again Yar Kung Fu, but this one is the sequel, Yar Kung Fu 2. I liked the first one a lot better, if I recall correctly. Nep Daughter. I guess that's Neptune's daughter. Don't remember that one. Alley Cat, I remember. I was watching a video of somebody playing that for Atari recently, but I think this whole disc is Commodore. And the back is SimCity version 1.1. Wow, that was for Commodore? I don't even remember that. I remember the DOS version. There's a very tiny chance somebody put a DOS program on this disc. I don't think so, though. Here we have Tangled Tales Boot and Adventure number 3, which I don't remember. Huh. Tangled Tales. Maybe, I guess it's some adventure game program, possibly with multiple adventures you could plug in. Here we have Adventure Creator. This is not adventure construction set yet. You could create some sort of adventure games with this. They were very simple. You would draw the level. You would make a goal of the game, like to find a certain item, and there were preset item names there. I can't remember most of them, except I remember one was the silk pajamas. So you could make it like it's your quest to find the silk pajamas, and you had to avoid enemies. When you're making the adventure, though, you could define different AI for each enemy, like they could chase the player or just stand there, or there was different behaviors basically. There were different kinds of objects you could find in the game, like something that disables traps, something that shoots a monster. I don't remember this too super well, but this is 1984 by Spinnaker. Yeah, that's cool. I had fun playing with this, but you could definitely make deeper games with Adventure Construction Set. But here we have Adventure Creator Saves. Look at that. Here we have a poor sleeve with no disc. Slapshot Hockey, Crystal Castles, Pole Position, Quick Load, and side 2 we have Wolfenstein, which is again probably the first Castle Wolfenstein, U-Boat, and Seamus Case 2. The Seamus games were really cool. It looks like I wrote, this is probably my handwriting, some Crystal Castles control notes, probably because the controls were weird and esoteric. Look at this. Space is jump, control is up left, 2 is down right, 1 is up out. I'm hoping these are alternate controls, like you could use the joystick or the keys. In any case, I decided to write the key controls on that little piece of paper. Here we have what was previously Law of the West Disc 2, and it eventually became Hacker 2, which I don't remember playing much, so I can't speak about that. I know the name. I don't remember there being a sequel, but I guess there was. And side 2, Beachhead. Beachhead was a really cool game where there were different screens. Trying to remember them. I can't remember basically you're trying to do a different military, I don't know what the term is, raid in each screen. But I can't remember the specifics, unfortunately. Quantum Link. Wow, the Commodore connection. So this is, I think, communication software. What I'm trying to remember though is this Is this like the prototype for America Online? Because I think they had a name, something like Quantum something or other. Quantum Link, I'm Googling it now. Yeah, oh, okay, it's not that. It's an online service, but there is a company which became AOL called Quantum Computer Services. Oh, but this service in 1989 was renamed to America Online. Wow, look at that. So this is the predecessor to the famous America Online that would bombard you with CDs and 1,000 free hours and all that stuff. A friend of mine used to actually adorn his ceiling with the AOL discs. He would just get so many of them, he would just glue them to the ceiling. Next up, we have Microprose, who was known for some pretty good games. And some random piece of paper, a label came off some other disc. This label's coming off too. The glue is not really holding up. But it is called the Top Gunner Collection. This side, Hellcat Ace. Other side, MiG Alley Ace and Air Rescue. Don't remember playing these a lot. I generally didn't, as a kid, play too many like military sim style games. They were probably too advanced for me. Look at that sticker. Here is Karateka. I would always say Karateka as a kid. I'm not sure what's correct. Karateka is a really cool game by Broderbund Software. It was very cinematic feeling at the time. And it had like a lot of one-on-one fights. So you would kick and punch your enemy and then progress through the level. There would be these cinematic sort of cutscenes. They were really well done at the time. And it had an infamous ending where the girl you're trying to rescue, if you approach her the wrong way, you're supposed to run into her arms. Like throughout the game, you can always just run, or you can kind of creep forward in your karate stance. I can't really imitate the full stance with just my hand, but you would be poised to fight with like your arms out and everything. And if you walked up to her in the karate stance, she would just kick you once and you're dead. Game over. You could have spent like hours trying to get that far. And then the girl you're trying to rescue just kills you. So you had to run into her arms to save her because she thought you were an enemy otherwise, I guess. On the front we have Hobbit Disc B, and on the back Mail Order Monsters 2. Mail Order Monsters is a great game. There was no sequel. I tried to make something vaguely resembling a sequel using Adventure Construction Set, which I mentioned a few times by now. I was always into making games and designing games. It surely did not play as well or anything like the original Mail Order Monsters. I probably didn't even finish it. That would be fun to try at some point though. And here is a very badly hole punched notch. So with these old discs, you could punch a hole right here. Ideally, it would be the same location and shape as this one. And that would allow you to use the reverse side, essentially. GEOS desktop. Wow. Yeah, so there was a sort of a GUI-based operating system for Commodore, and this was it, GEOS. I remember basically only using it kind of like a demo, right? Like, oh, this is cool, but what are you going to do with it? There wasn't much supporting software, or at least not too many that I cared about. It might have been there was some productive thing, productivity tools like word processor or something, but nothing I cared about. There were no games I could play with it. Kung Fu 2 Sticks of Death. This was bad. This was designed to be a sequel of something else. I think possibly Way of the Exploding Fist. But this was bad. It wasn't good. Yeah, I remember being hugely disappointed by this one. Gonna pause for a minute to take a sip of water. Okay, let's move on. We've completed looking through the loose pile of discs. And now onto the tub. So what's in the tub, bub? Excuse me. Here's an unknown BASF disc, an unknown value life disc. Hopefully they're not all like this. It'd be a boring part. That's all just dirt and stuff, but there is some text under that gross crime, and it says, I wonder if it's that same weird name I saw before that I could barely read, like Maze of Magicor or something like that. What does that say? I might have to clean this and see if I can read it after cleaning off the dirt. But it does look like Maze of something for sure. Maze of Oscar Mayer Wieners. I don't know. And there are more Tangled Tales here, which again, I don't recall what it is. But on the other disc, we had Adventure number 3. Here we have Adventures numbers 1 and 2. Stealth. What the heck was Stealth? Stealth. Don't remember that at all. And here we have Super C compiler. Yeah, Super C has nothing to do with the NES game, which is the sequel to Contra, but rather this is a compiler for the C language, essentially. I never programmed in C on the Commodore, only in BASIC. I programmed in C starting in the early 90s on PCs. I can't imagine doing serious programming on a Commodore anymore. As much as I like playing with old machines, when it comes to programming, thought of doing so on a Commodore or Atari 800. Whew. Here we have Marbled Madness, side A and B. That's a great game, Marbled Madness. It's probably best with a trackball, which you didn't have on a Commodore, but great game nonetheless. Next up, Burnin Rubber. That was a fun game. It's a bump and jump knockoff, but well done if I recall correctly. Frogger, a classic. Jumpman Jr., also a classic. And side B, Summer Games, also a classic. And Winter Games. Yeah, Winter Games is great too. This is another two in one from Firebird. Go the Ghost and Collapse. Yeah, those are both pretty good games. I remember Collapse being kind of a cool action puzzler almost. Go the Ghost, it wasn't great. It was okay though. I remember it being a Swedish game, and then when you would die, the word FJUP, FJUP, would appear on the screen. And if I recall correctly, the manual said that's Swedish for zap. So you would go FJUP. Treasure Island 2. Again, I don't remember what these Treasure Islands are. Wow. But I would think they are some adventure game of some sort. Also, side B. Gilligan's Gold, Arabian, Quest for Tires 1 and 2, and Star Post. I only remember Quest for Tires. That's a really cool game based on the BC comic strip about the cavemen. So you are a caveman on a kind of unicycle, but it's a stone wheel. And, you know, you have to avoid obstacles and jump over things that are bad and rescue the girl, as is the common plot in old games. Here we have Druids and Ghosts and Goblins. This must be the Commodore one. I think Druids is actually Druid singular. It's a cool game, kind of like Gauntlet, but for 2 players, where basically the main character is the Druid, and he can summon a golem to help him. But the second player can control the golem, or you can just issue him orders, which I remember was very difficult. You'd have to say like follow or go left or something like that. Don't remember all the specific orders, but it was much easier if you had a second player to control the golem. However, the golem didn't always exist at all times, so most of the time, the second player was waiting around doing nothing. Ghosts and Goblins is the infamously hard game. It's even harder on Commodore. I remember the music being really great, but compared to NES and other versions, it was kind of bad. I mean, it was totally playable. It was just very hard. There was a lot of flicker, if I remember correctly, and because you only had one button on those old school 9-pin joysticks, you know, the button was to fire, to throw your weapon, and that means how do you jump, right? You don't have another button, so it would be up. I never liked that. In any kind of like platform game where you had to move the stick upward to jump, it never felt right to me. On side 2 is an adventure construction set game called Klinulin Invasion. I guess it's supposed to be something like Klingon. I don't know who made that. It looks like my brother's handwriting, so maybe he made that particular adventure. Don't remember it though. This one says side 1 F. Okay, here's some more clues. Blue Max 2, 1 and 2, Flying Ace. Side 2, Lazy Jones, Rocket Ball, Soccer, and Spy vs. Spy 2. Wow. Yeah, of those, my favorite is probably Lazy Jones. That is a crazy cool game. I'll have to play it sometime soon. That's a game where you are a guy, I guess, whose name is Lazy Jones, in this 3-story building of some sort. It's like an arcade, and you can go into each room and play a single mini game. It's kind of like almost like Wario World, except a couple decades before, or at least like a decade and a half or so. And it's a lot of fun. It has great music. In fact, there's a song from Lazy Jones that has been sampled, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Sampled by some kind of like electronic group, maybe in the early 2000s. And it became a huge thing. Like this electronic group sampled this obscure Commodore 64 game, and it became a tune that you would hear at sporting events and stuff and such. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Something with zombie in the name. Kerncraft 400 Zombie Nation, yeah. So they lifted this straight from Lazy Jones. Let me see if I can play it for you. Okay, enough of that. Yeah, so somehow this game became very popular in its own twisted, weird way. And that's a fun one though, Lazy Jones. What's next? I don't remember this disc at all. Boulder Dash. Yeah, that's a good game, Boulder Dash. Cohen's Towers, don't remember that. Hustler, no. Side Pac-Man. Huh. I can only speculate what that is. I wonder if somebody had Pac-Man on its side so that you could play it vertically oriented like in the arcade. But you would probably have to turn your entire TV or monitor to do so. Tapper, that's a famous game, famous classic where you're trying to serve beer to people. Zeppelin, don't remember that. Ghost Chaser, don't remember that. Grog's Revenge is a sequel to BC Quest for Tires, I think. Pakakuda, no. Pool, no. Polyps, no. Quest for Tires, yes. BC again. And side 2 is some adventure construction set game. I recall this one's for Atari. Gunfight. That's a fun game. I think the original was from the 70s. It's just like a two cowboys on the left and right side of the screen shooting each other, and there's like cactuses in the way, as well as this wagon that goes up the middle. It's just an obstacle. It deflects bullets. Pretty cool. Next up, Lords of Conquest, which is a great game. It's published by EA, Electronic Arts, and it was based on a board game called Borderlands by the makers of Cosmic Encounter, Peter Olatka, and I always remember his name, but not everybody else's. I think one of the guys' names is Bill Eberly. Cosmic Encounter is one of my favorite games. I never got around to playing Borderlands, which is a board game made by those same guys, but Lords of Conquest is the computerized version of Borderlands. It's a lot of fun. You conquer territories, you make resources, you can play on a plethora of different maps. You can play from 1 to 4 players. 1 player is against the AI. Ton of fun. You can control. You can configure each game to have a high degree of chance or a medium degree or a low degree, And that means basically if I have 3 forces versus your 2, what's my probability of success? You can make it so that 3 always beats 2, or that there's a small element of chance or a strong element of chance. Really good game. And you can build like different things like boats and weapons. You would harvest different kinds of resources like lumber and gold and coal. And yeah, good stuff. Side B is Griffin. That is a weird game that I never got the hang of. Monopoly, I guess. Monopole. It might have been a knockoff, so they called it Monopole. Astro Grover. I guess that's Grover from Sesame Street. And Bug Squad. I remember Bug Squad vaguely. It might have been a Centipede knockoff. Lords of Conquest. I gotta check that out sometime soon. Wolf 2 is a basic little shoot 'em up where you're shooting submarines and stuff. ER Kung Fu again, Mobius, and Bounce. Oh, Bounces is a bizarre game. It's so cool though. That might be one of the best for Commodore. It's such a weird game, but it's a lot of fun. It's a 2-player game where it's 2 characters. You're kind of like these warriors. I think one is blue and one is orange, and you're both tethered by this like elastic cord to either the left side of the entire screen or the right side. And there's this ball bouncing around, and the tethers keep you from trying to remember if I'm going to say the right thing or not. I feel like it makes it difficult for you to just run up to each other and hack up each other with your swords, because it kind of has a strong amount of tension. But there's this ball that bounces around, and you can grab the ball by touching it with your sword, and then you can let go and shoot it at the other guy. And you just try to knock him down a lot, basically. Such a fun, weird game, if I remember correctly. Mobius is I think it was published by EA, so it was considered a high quality game at the time. I never got into it a ton, and it has kind of like an Eastern martial artsy feel. So it's kind of the combat is action oriented, but otherwise it's kind of RPG-ish, I think. Here we have some disc. Weird thing though, it's kind of funny how this is gross, but the gook and the grime, it seems to always show up in certain places. You don't see it on this sleeve, but on the Value Life labels, it's always right here. But here we have Crossfire. Oh, that's fun. I remember Stu from Stu's Game Reviews recently playing Crossfire on his stream. Fun game. The others are downright classics, though. Galaxy and Defender, Ms. Pac-Man, and Dig Dug. Those games need no introduction, but Crossfire is kind of cool. The whole screen looks like almost like a bunch of city blocks, and you move along the roads shooting these enemies. And each time you kill one, it transforms into a stronger form, if I recall correctly. And it had a fun soundtrack. So I got to take a small break. I'll be right back. Next up, we have the famous RPG, the first of a series called Might and Magic. Oh, wow, yeah. Might and Magic is an RPG kind of along the lines of Bard's Tale and Wizardry. Pretty good, but it spawned a lot of kind of what do you want? Not knockoffs, other style games, but with the same name, Might and Magic. Most notably, let me slide the camera a little bit. Most notably, probably Heroes of Might and Magic. That was a whole series of games, which those were actually in turn based on King's Bounty. Good games, those. There's also a shoot 'em up that I played a lot of for some reason. Most people did not. It was kind of obscure, called Legends of Might and Magic, and that was actually like Counter-Strike. You can play it online. But anyway, this is the original Might and Magic. Pretty good game. Not a game that I feel like I need to return to today, though. Another unlabeled BASF. I used to always call it BASF. I guess in my whole household we called it BASF. Here we have the Bard's Tale 2, Destiny Knight. Yeah, the sequel to the classic Bard's Tale. If I recall correctly, in this one, you're trying to find the 7 fragments of some a magical wand or something, or rod. It's probably the something of destiny. I don't know. Not the Spear of Destiny. Fun game. Definitely a time sink. Here we have 128 progs, which probably means it's the handful of Commodore 128 programs that we had. So, yeah, so there wasn't just Commodore 64 among Commodore computers. Commodore 128 was like an upgrade. It had 128K of RAM as opposed to 64 that the Commodore 64 had. So potentially you could do a lot more with it. As far as games go, pretty much everything was for Commodore 64. But you could boot up the Commodore 128 into 64 mode, which is what we did beyond 99% of the time in my household, because we mostly played games on it, and all the games were for Commodore 64. But there were some specific 128 games that are probably on the, not games, but programs. I don't remember any games, just kind of other utilities or like animation programs or something. And they are apparently on this disc, maybe some others as well. Kung Fu, Way of the Exploding Fist. Yeah, that's a great game in the vein of sort of Karate Champ and such. Really good at the time. Good music, good action. On side 2, we have On-Court Tennis, Spy vs. Spy, which is also great, and Midway, which I don't really remember. This is the game that was the first. Remember before I talked about Kung Fu 2, Sticks of Death, that I didn't like? Well, this was the first one, which is much better. Kung Fu 2 was more of a game. It wasn't like a one-on-one fighter. It was kind of more like Karateka, where you were scrolling and fighting guys one by one, but it just wasn't good. Here we have GW Basic. That. And we have an Egghead software. Wow. Talk about a time capsule. Egghead software sleeve. And this actually might break my rule that I mentioned earlier, that these are all Commodore and Atari discs. I believe GW Basic was only for PCs, for DOS specifically. I programmed with GW Basic, and it felt like an upgrade from the Atari and Commodore Basic that I was used to. Next up, wow, a lot of discs crammed onto this. I mean, a lot of games crammed onto this disc. We have Atari soft games. Pac-Man, Grid Runner, Cube Hopper. Is that a Cubert game I was trying to think of? I was trying to think of the name of this Cubert clone I had. I think Cube Hopper might be it. Centipede Defender, Dig Dug. Fast Eddie's pretty cool. Congo Bongo. Squish 'em. That's pretty fun. You're climbing a building and squish 'em, and you squish bad guys. Omicron. Yeah, I remember Omicron. And for some reason, when the Omicron variant of COVID came up in the news, a lot of people were like, "How do you even pronounce that? I never heard of that before." And I was like, "I remember Omicron. I first heard of it in like the 80s when I got this Commodore game called Omicron." In any case, here's Crossfire again, and Donkey Kong. And inside 2, we have Crazy Comets, which is a pretty good game, again with great music by Rob Hubbard. But not otherwise not super memorable. An okay game though. Rambo, yeah, I remember that one for sure. And Scalextric. The name rings a vague bell. I just don't remember what that is at all. Rambo is it's pretty good. It's very hard, but it's one of those games where once you get the hang of it, you can beat it in like 5 minutes or something. You can probably look up a playthrough of it. Commodore Rambo. Next up, we have Crisis Mountain. Yeah, I remember this a little bit. It's kind of like a platformer where everything is dangerous, and you know you're kind of exploring this mountain and going through caves and trying to find treasure and avoiding traps and enemies, something like that. Fast Hack'em. So this was a utility to hack software. Like I don't know exactly how it worked. I was very young. It was magic to me, but I guess it had kind of a database of software, probably mostly games, maybe not mostly games, I don't know. And it had instructions for how to like wipe out the copy protection in these games, I think. Or otherwise just enabled you to be able to copy a game or other piece of software. Here we have Smart DOS. My spidey sense, in other words, my gut feeling is telling me this is actually for Atari. Don't remember though. Next up, Lords of Conquest saves. Okay, and the first one is what? And live. I don't know what that is. Something saves, and then followed by Lords of Conquest saves. Yeah, so pretty much any game that let you save your game, you needed a blank disc source. So Lord of Conquest was that cool war game that I mentioned a little while ago based on the board game Borderlands. And if you wanted to save your game in progress, you needed a disc, a separate disc. Here we have Ocean Decathlon. Okay, that's kind of like a track and field style game. Spare Change was a weird, quirky, fun game where there's these strange creatures harassing you in like an arcade, and you would have to collect these tokens, and you would put the tokens in like the arcade game. I think there was a popcorn machine you could put one token in, and it would make the it would distract the monsters as they watched the popcorn pop. And you could put a quarter or a token in a jukebox, and then the music would make the monsters dance for like maybe about 10 or 20 seconds. And the overall goal though, I can't remember. I feel like you were trying to move all the tokens around or something like that. That's a weird and fun game. Munchie, I don't remember, but I feel like anything that had the word Munchie in the title was like a knockoff of Pac-Man, usually like Munchman. Goblin, don't remember Goblin at all. Star League Baseball, I also don't, that's the backside, don't remember that one. Forbidden Forest, I know and love that game. And another copy of Ms. Pac-Man. Ms. Pac-Man, also Star Wars, which I guess is like a conversion of that arcade game, but I'm not sure. I used to like that for Atari a lot. Another copy of Castle Wolfenstein. An unlabeled Value Life disc. But again, the grime is always in that same place. Also on this one. Spider Eater. What the heck was this? Oh, let's use the Koala Pad. This is from Koala Technologies, 1983. And Koala Pad was an early touchpad. You would use a stylus. I mostly played with it for the drawing tool that it came with. That was really good for that, actually. But it had other things too, other software. This was a game, I guess, called Spider Eater that I don't remember playing a lot. So it probably wasn't very good, but I guess it tried to take advantage of that interface, the touchpad, which was new and cool at the time. Unlabeled Data Life disc, unlabeled Maxill Disc. Next, we have Eastern Front, which I believe is for Atari. It's a really cool turn-based war game that I remember my dad liking a lot. I didn't play it a heck of a lot. I think we also have the cartridge, so I'm not sure why we have the disc here. Wow, Atari Writer. This was our family word processor, as I mentioned a while ago. Inside these K pictures, which I can only guess is pictures that we made using the Koala Pad, probably, which I just talked about a moment ago. Again, Atari Writer, this might be the actual save files, perhaps both of them. You know, probably one of them is the software itself, the application. The rest are the saves. You could probably find some book reports from like the 80s that we made. Me and my siblings made. This is a good game for Commodore. It's called The Legend of Black Silver. Yeah, this is a really cool RPG. I liked it a lot. There was a similar one called Legacy of the Ancients, I believe. I think this one came second. Legend of Black Silver. Fast Tracks. This was a fun, like, slot car racing game. And look what we have on the side, too. We have Coki's Eggs again. Oh, no. It could be one of them is the original game, and another one was the somebody saved game of Coki's Eggs. Can't remember. Next up, unlabeled Data Life disc. Fight Night. Ace of Aces and Championship Baseball. Yeah, Fight Night. I remember that being a kind of goofy, humorous boxing game. Not that great. Okay, I gotta pause for a bit. Here we have what looks like Print Shop. This is really, really popular. You could print cards and posters. This for Commodore. Yeah, it had a whole bunch of built-in fonts. I don't think I even had heard of the concept of a font until I had used Print Shop. Like, it never really was a concept I was aware of. that you could use different fonts. Obviously, I probably saw them in books and things, but I never saw any kind of creative piece of software that offered different fonts until Print Shop. And on the back, we have Fast Hack 'em once again, maybe a different version. I don't know. Game Maker Disc 2, Cracker Jacks, Shotgun Copy Program, Front, Cracker Jacks Elite 2. Oh, wow. I guess these first two are on the front, and the back have these two. So I kind of just went, oh, wow, because Elite, I don't know about Elite 2, but Elite is considered like one of the best games ever, especially by old school game fans. And I never played it back in the day. It's a game where you are essentially in space. You're a space trader kind of guy, and you have to I played games that are similar, but years later. But anyway, you're trying to deal with delivering cargo from planets and making money in the progress in the process, and also fighting enemies like pirates who try to harass you. And if you break the law, like for example, if you choose to trade narcotics, then the police might come after you, and you have to deal with them too. I think that's what it is. Elite 2. Love to try it someday. I don't know what anything else is here. Like Shotgun, I guess it's a copy. Something for copying discs, and Cracker Jacks might be a game. Apparently, Cracker Jacks is on the front and back. So here we have, Towers of Garrison was a an adventure construction set adventure that I made. Towers of Garrison. I don't know why it says front Brian. That is my brother's name. It could be that's his saved game of Towers of Garrison, or he overwrote Towers of Garrison with something else. And inside B, we have Jeopardy for Commodore 64, which was pretty good, actually. Of course, it was a little bit tedious to type out answers, but it was better than NES, probably. On NES, you'd have to use a D-pad to type in answers. And we have Dive Bomber, which I don't remember in the slightest. I guess it's what the title sounds like. You're a dive bomber. Zork 2. Wizard's Crown sides 1 and 2 play discs. What was Wizard's Crown? Sometimes these sort of generic fantasy names all blend in together in my head. Don't remember Wizard's Crown. Here we have Bard's Tale character disc. That's probably like saved games for the original Bard's Tale, essentially. And Pro Boxing. Yeah, I remember Pro Boxing, it being a pretty fun boxing game. Black Silver on the front, probably a saved adventure disc or saved game disc. And on the back we had Silent Service, which was a submarine game. Again, kind of one of those military style simulation games that I never really got into back in the day. On the front of this disc, we're getting close to the end, by the way. I can't believe this video is going over an hour. I thought it might be like 10 minutes. The front is Enchanter, which is a text adventure, if I recall correctly. And the back is Championship Boxing, another boxing game with a generic name. It's not a generic fantasy name, it's a generic boxing name. For some reason, I remember Pro Boxing. I remember playing that. It was pretty good, if a bit simple and generic, but Championship Boxing, I don't recall at all. Next, we have Pascal programs. I don't mean it. I don't know if that means some homemade programs. I was not programming in Pascal back in the day. If anyone was, it would have been my brother and or father. On side 2, we have Jumpman and Motor Mania. Don't remember Motor Mania, but Jumpman is an all-time classic. Yeah, it's a great game, Jumpman. Along with Jumpman Jr. that we passed by earlier. Computer course programs. Okay, somebody was taking a computer course and put their programs here. And on the back, we have an Indiana Jones game. I can't remember what that was. Indiana Jones. Oh, wow, this is amazing right here. We got 2 discs stuck into one sleeve, but this is saved games for the very first Ultima, I believe. Very first Ultima 1, released in the whatever year that was, probably 81. We had that for Atari. And I believe the front is my brother's character, Klutz. I think that was a name he used to like to use everywhere. And I was Snork because I liked the Snorks, I guess. Yeah, I played through Ultima 1. That was fun. It was definitely really cool at the time. Your adventures could lead into space and everything. And it felt like a massively cool game at the time. Very early RPG. That wasn't just like a randomly generated game like, procedurally generated like Rogue or something. It had a predetermined quest and everything, pre-written settings. And here we have Microsoft Basic. Yeah, Microsoft was around back then. And I think these are games that ran only in Microsoft Basic for Atari. They're called Alpha, Hunter, and Hall of Death. On the back, we have Renegade Bot, Renegade Dot something Bot. Don't know what that is. It might be another game for Microsoft Basic. Front Soccer, Buck Rogers. Fort Apocalypse was, I believe, I don't remember what Buck Rogers was, by the way, but Fort Apocalypse was a pretty cool game that was similar in style to Choplifter. One-on-One, I believe, is the not Jordan Bird, but Dr. J and Larry Bird, I think. It's a basketball game, really cool. Really cool at the time, anyway. Popeye on the back. J Bird. What was J Bird? Rings a bell, but don't remember. Gyrus is a great game. Baggett Man. I think it's a knockoff of something. Bagman. I don't know. I don't remember the exact name, but that was pretty good though. Baggett Man. And here's a sleeve, empty sleeve that I guess contained the Atari operating system at one point. Games number 1 basic cartridge. Okay, these are probably games and games 2 basic cartridge. I guess you had to have the basic cartridge plugged in for Atari, probably. I remember a basic cartridge for that, but not for Commodore. And Commodore was built in. For Atari computers, it was a cartridge, except later models, like I think the Atari 800 XL had basic built in. So if you didn't plug in a cartridge or you didn't boot from the disk, it would default to the internal basic. But on the older computers like the Atari 800, not XL, it didn't include basic. I don't believe you needed a special basic cartridge. And here we have Bard's Tale and Ultima 4. I guess they're probably saves. Here's a disc that just says both sides full. Curious. Next. Oop, some discs are falling. Oh no. Avalanche. This one we have Speed King. Don't know what that is. Gyroscope was a pretty cool knockoff of Marble Madness, I believe. Not great, but not bad. Paperboy is a great game. That's on the back. Here we have Bard's Tale characters and Haley Project. What was the Haley Project? I think another adventure game. Pitfall 2 is wonderful. Black Hawk, I don't remember. Agent USA is crossed out, I think. Hacker and The Goonies. The Goonies was pretty cool. My buddy Stu from Stu's Game Review did a live stream of The Goonies. Pretty cool. He figured out the whole game. Hacker, I don't remember Hacker. We've gone through Hacker and Hacker 2. I just can't remember them. I don't think they have anything to do with Steve Jackson Games card game Hacker. Bard's Tale, probably saved games again. And another version of Fast Hack'em. I think the last one we looked at was 1.1. This one is 3.0. The sleeve says something else. Bard's Tale character disc and Bard's Tale dungeon disc. Okay. Wizard's Crown source. Again, I don't remember Wizard's Crown. Commodore Model 1541. That was the disk drive. This is a test disk, apparently. Test/demo. More Bard's Tale. The back is Buckwheat for Ultima 3. It used to be Muscle Man, then it became Buckwheat. Okay, Ultima 3, yeah, another Ultima game. This is probably a character name. Somebody called their character Buckwheat. I think we had a neighbor friend who was into Buckwheat from the Little Rascals for a while. That might have been him. Full of Radiance. Wow. So this game, yeah, Full of Radiance is a well-known game by SSI. One of the first really well-produced D&D based games, maybe the first. Really cool game. Here we have adventure construction set stuff on both sides. I was hugely into that. This one says NG something okay. I don't know what that would mean. NG usually means something like not good. Maybe this was bad. I don't know why we would keep it. This one looks a lot like that other Mastertronic dual games on one disc thing. This has Hunter Patrol on side 1 and Ad Infinitum on side 2. Yeah, I remember Ad Infinitum. A not so special but okay shoot 'em up. I don't remember Hunter Patrol at all. Eternal Dagger source disc. Side A blank, side B blank. Don't remember. Eternal Dagger, one of those generic fantasy names once again. Speed script, etc. Don't know what that is. It's some kind of util though, probably not a game. On the back we have Pole Position, an all-time classic. Kicks. Patch. Don't know what Patch is. Kicks is a great classic. Hero is a wonderful classic. Suicide Express was by Gremlin Graphics, I believe, and it was one of the few Commodore games that featured a digitized voice. I remember it saying something like, "Welcome to the Suicide Express." And it was this really kind of creepy game. Even the intro screen was creepy. It had these skulls and stuff. But you were this train trying to like zoom through levels while all these different enemies were coming at you. Pitfall 2, once again, great game. And Cube Opera, once again, which I think was that Qbert clone. So this was, I guess was because it's crossed out. Grim Reaper was my character for Ultima 4 that I played through the whole game with. It was quite exhausting to play through all that game, but great too. But now it has Sea Fox, Star Trek, Donkey Kong Centipede, Dig Dug Battlezone, Popeye, and Moon Patrol. A bunch of like classics, like old Atari and such classics. You know, Centipede. Everybody knows a lot of these games. Donkey Kong. I don't know what Star Trek version that is specifically. Sargon 2, which is a chess game again that I didn't play much of. Pac-Man, Congo Bongo. Here we have Adventure Construction Set, Toon Builder Set. Huh. I don't know what that is. Toon. I guess somebody trying to make cartoon kind of game, maybe based on the Steve Jackson game's RPG called Toon. Interesting. Here we have Game Maker both sides. I don't remember specifically what Game Maker was. It could be Gary Kitchen's Game Maker. Another Treasure Island disc, which again I don't remember. I'm sorry I don't remember so many of these. I felt like I would remember everything. I guess I just remember the games I got into a lot, right? Jeopardy was really cool. And again, I have helpfully laid out the commands. So player 1's buzzer is the Commodore key. Player 2's buzzer is space. And player 3's buzzer is the F7 key. So I guess Commodore was on the left side of the keyboard. Space is dead center, obviously. And F7, yeah, the F keys on Commodore were like along the right side, arranged vertically. So you had like Commodore, space, and F7. So that way all three players could sit by the keyboard comfortably, I guess. More Treasure Island. I'm really curious what this was because apparently we needed a lot of discs for it. And we're getting very close to the end here. Probably Might and Magic saves. And lastly, Kung Fu Master. I remember the Commodore one not being the best. I liked Kung Fu for NES better. The Zorro game was really cool. It was a kind of action puzzler game. You had to like figure out exactly what to do. You would jump around and you were this black Zorro figure with the trademark hat and rapier kind of a thing, or whatever kind of sword that is. And lastly, Sky Fox, which I don't remember. Spy's Demise was a cool game, but it's crossed out apparently. And that's the end of the tub of discs. All right. Well, that was a long, long perusal of a bunch of old discs. And thanks for joining. with me. Let me know if you have any memories of these specific games, or if you have any questions or comments. Maybe you can fill me in on some of the games I didn't know about, or some of the other programs I didn't know about. Yeah, that's it. Maybe I'll play some of these on stream sometime. Even if you want to call out a game that I can play live sometime, let me know and I'll do that. Maybe I'll play Zorro sometime. I don't know. But that's it for now, guys. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. See you next time. Take care.